So I think finally it happened from at least from my side. So who here have tried setting up KMM in your local machine? I have set up in my local machine. Raise your hand, please. Okay. So anyone having trouble setting up KMM? Because I had few students, not in this section, but from other one, they were having quite a trouble on there. So I was trying, but I have ran into few troubles. Anyone? Okay. All right. So anyone else in here tried out the assignment or the things I was asked to do? Like I was asked to so yeah, so we last time we created the KMM application, but it was just taking a little bit time to load it. So I hope if you guys have tried it out, it should be working fine by now. And if you guys can see, I have launched it already. The most smallest form of application that you will find. So we have something like greeting view, and greeting view will get the value from greetings, and the greet where we have defined this shared module. Okay, I think we exclusively went through the shared section where we have the common main, common iOS main, and Android main. Okay, where all these things are like a different implementation for the major platforms, Android and iOS. So common main is where we define how we should look like. Okay, and Android main is the Android implementation, and we have iOS main for iOS implementation. Okay, so it's gonna be the same interface that we're gonna be using, but in different platforms. Okay, so now we have to like look into a few things where we will we'll see what's the actual implementation would look like when we run this. Okay, so currently I have run the Android application. You guys can see that it's a Hello Android 33, which is the Android platform version that we are working with. And I got to run the iOS application as well. So you can test the Android and iOS at right from the configuration from Android Studio itself. But I would not recommend to run the iOS version within Android Studio, because that's where Xcodes come in handy. You can use Xcode to work with Xcode related stuff. Okay, so right now I'll just run the iOS application and hit the play button, and there are like a couple of scripts that written for iOS, and if you guys can see that the same application but in iOS simulator, it's showing the Hello and iOS version that it's running upon. Okay, so the same application, but remember, when you are using KMM, these are not like hybrid application like Flutter or React Native, but these are like two native application sharing the business logic. Okay, that's the purpose of KMM. Okay, and if you guys can remember, there are builds happening on. So there is the Android app, there is the iOS app, right now, we can only work with iOS or Android application at a given time. So to make things interesting, to make things more understandable, what we'll do is we will open this project in Xcode, so you guys can see what I am talking in here. Let me navigate to the project, documents, project, oops, projects. Right. Where is this one? Android Studio projects. SMG, 3M, KMM, and iOS app. So I am gonna open the iOS app. Okay. Let me move this to the next desktop. So I have iOS on one and Android on another one. Okay. So basically, when you are opening the Xcode iOS application, make sure to only open the iOS folder. Do not open the whole project. It's not gonna work as you expect in Android Studio, because Android Studio is capable of at least opening these things. But when you are opening these things in iOS, at least from Xcode, make sure to open the iOS app directory only. Okay, other applications, other things that would not work as expected. Okay, till this one loads. So I'm not gonna go through like introduction to Xcode or anything like that. That's out of the scope of this project. We'll just wait until it loads and continue with the iOS exploration. Let's see what are the key features that we talked is there or not. Okay, so the next thing that most of us is gonna go with that is we talked about the KMM 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 things. So uh, it is sharing the code, okay, but up to some level. And not all the projects that's out there which is written in Kotlin is working with Kotlin multi-platform. The libraries that we're going to be using uh, should be uh, should be capable, or should be written in a way that is KMM supported. So I think last time we showed what are the things it's supporting, what are the things it does not. So we need to make sure that it is it's in a way the libraries that we are using is in a way uh, these libraries are supported. Okay, so we talk in depth about that regarding the external libraries, sorry, regarding the shared libraries that we have. Okay, so when when you are working with the libraries, make sure the Gradle files, build.gradles, are updated accordingly. Okay, not all the libraries out there is going to support KMM by default. There you go. So you can see in here we have a direct place to put the multi-platform dependencies. Other ones will not work as we expect in here. Okay, so we need to make sure where we are putting our dependencies, and those dependencies that we put are KMM compatible. Okay, so we ran the basic application. So in SRC Android main, you can see the platform.android. It is showing what we supposed to say. So we are working on this greeting class that we were working on. Okay, it is in common main, and this is the one that we have worked with. So it's gonna get the platform and it will return hello, whatever the platform name. Okay, so the get platform is in interface that we have defined the get platform method. So based on the platform that we are running, Android will give Android platform implementation. iOS will give the iOS platform implementation. And the get platform, sorry, the platform implementation, you can see it's gonna call core Android stuff and get these values. So if it is for iOS, and it is calling the iOS way of calling the native things like UI device and get those values. Okay, it's gonna be the implementation which gonna differ from version to version that will work with uh, both iOS and Android. Okay, that's how we're gonna write like a platform specific code. But most of the time, when we write the code that is not platform specific, we can work with things like libraries. Okay, all right. So we will continue with the cross-platform application creation. So I will be following up the official documentation, and we will see how we can change the application, and how we can change these things as we go. Okay. So, one thing that I would do is like we have this greet message, right? So this greet message will return hello and the platform number. So this greet message is used in our both iOS and Android application. So how do we know that? We go to SRC Java main activity. You can see that greeting.greet. Okay, this is the class that we are using. So greeting, if you look at greeting is coming from the package itself, the package that we are working with, and that is a common implementation of our application like this. So we can change that. Say for example, so for example, without changing the application itself, that means we have the iOS application. Yes, we have the Android application. Now, say for instance, we want to change the logic. Okay, the logic in the sense something like this. It is not like a huge logic or like the mathematical logic in the sense, but logic is uh, what defines these rules, what defines the greeting message. That is the logic. So it basically say hello platform name. So I want to change the logic behind the hello message. I want to say hello Randika and platform name. So If I execute this right now for the Android application, now you guys can see that it's a hello Randika Android 33. And if I go to the iOS application, which I will execute from here and run it again, and it will take some time to compile. And once it is compiled, you can see hello Randika and the iOS version. So you guys can see that I have not changed anything related to the UI or anything like that. The logic has been changed from here. So once I change the logic in the command section, the command section is the command name. Okay, if I change it from here, the whole application change accordingly. I don't have to do any coding in iOS or Android to specifically this scenario to change the greeting message. Okay, so that's how we can share the code between two platforms, and a change in one single code base, as in that code change that I have done in the greet message will affect both iOS and Android. So this is gonna make our lives little bit simpler, that we do not have to work on changing these things in each and every platform. Okay, so if you have two native platforms, what you have to do is you have to change the text in two different places. But now, since we are utilizing this greeting class, which is like a common place, common business logic, you just need to change in here and it reflects on both of our application. Okay, that is cool. So next thing that what we're gonna do is we can like change um, anything that we'll see in here. Uh, uh, so let's do some modification. Like this is like a basic application. Let's do something more real world. Okay. Um, so remember, as I mentioned earlier, uh, the dependencies that we are going to be using, uh, um, dependencies that we're going to be using is going to be uh, something that we have to be very careful when we are talking in KMM. Okay, as I mentioned, not all the native libraries are going to be supporting. So if you have retrofit, you don't think retrofit will work at KMM. So I don't have great Objective-C for retrieving those things. It's not gonna be like that. So we have dependencies where KMM is supported, Kotlin multi-platform supported, and there will be native ones. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we can have the multi-platform related ones in here. Okay, and if you want to have native dependencies for Android only, you as a usual project, we have this build.grader.kts, which is in the Android app section. You can have the dependencies in here. Okay, these are going to be the normal Android based dependencies. So if for some reason we do not have the KMM support, we'll have to have those dependencies in here. Okay, same goes for iOS. So if you have the iOS application, and right now we can't see any dependencies in iOS, but as soon as the iOS application is ready from Xcode side, we can use the Swift package manager, because for Swift and iOS, we will be using, if you are using native ones, we'll be using the Swift package manager to do so. Okay, so we can't have Kotlin dependencies in here. Only supported ones are Swift package manager ones. Earlier there was CocoaPod, but since we define in the project, we specifically said we are not going to use CocoaPod. We're going to be using Swift Package Manager. Okay. So the next thing that we'll be looking at is finding that kind of dependencies for multi-platform. Okay. So one of the libraries that we have seen is to get some details around the KMM is there is a library called Kotlin X datetime. Okay, so we need to check whether the Kotlin X datetime is supported a multi-platform library. So you can see that Kotlin X datetime is one of the supported libraries. So make sure these things are like are considered as shared with KMM, or you have to say whether it is JMM or JS or Darwin. So make sure all these libraries that we're going to be sharing, if we are sharing, those are Kotlin multi-platform enabled. Okay. So I think last time we show how we can make sure that is that is Kotlin multi-platform supported or not. We have a list of supported ones, supported repositories even we can find that saying, okay, these are supported and these are the functionalities. So the Kotlin X datetime will give us a manipulation of date and times. So what I will do is I will get the dependencies and make sure that we are, since it is KMM supported, we have to define the dependencies in shared build.kts and right around here. So you guys can see the dependencies for the command main is getting dependencies and this implementation. If you guys can remember, it's like normal implementation that we do in Android application, and you have the datetime library which we put it in here. Okay, so if there is something related to testing, you have to put it in here, not like what we do in Android we have implementation and Android test implementation and test implementation. There are like 3 categories we can put, but in here if you have test implementation, you just put it in here under common test. Sorry. So common main will have the implementation of Kotlin X datetime, so that we have datetime access. So we'll sync up now. We'll sync the project as we do normally when we are dealing with Android project even. So we are getting these things downloaded. And what we'll do is we will create another file, and then we will see how we can utilize the datetime function that we got, the library. Okay, this library is KMM supported. Now we're going to utilize this KMM library in both of our Android and iOS. Okay, so we will create a directory where we can have these things in our application. So we have this package system. So we have Kotlin for greeting and platform. We will have New Year KT. Okay, this is actually from official documentation. So what we will do is we're gonna create a class called actually we don't need this class definition anyhow. I'll just copy paste this section of code, and in here it's gonna be basically what we're gonna do is get the today, and we'll get how many years are gonna be there for the next year, how many days that's gonna be. So we will create a new date that is gonna be today plus 1 year, and month will be the first and day will be first. That means as of this recording, it's gonna be 2024 January 1st. Okay, that is the closest New Year date, and we can get the days until that day. Okay, so we get the today and we get the next year's first day, and we calculate the how many days that's going to be there for until the next time. Okay, all right. So this code section uh, is what we called a uh, shareable Kotlin module. So unlike with the greetings, okay, greeting have a platform dependency. That means Android the Android gets the platform version in a different way. iOS get it a different way. So we had to do the platform implementation for both in two different manners. But in this scenario, getting the new year, we are not going to do that in two different ways, but we're going to utilize the existing library, the Kotlin X datetime. Fortunately, Kotlin X datetime is KMM compatible. That means you don't need to implement the code in Android and iOS. It is compatible on running both of the applications, both platforms. Okay, so we'll just go in here. Hello Randika, and I will add a new line in here, and I'll say there are only, then we can say days until New Year, 2 days left until New Year. Okay. So what we have done here is that we have taken the existing command. Okay, I'll just run it from here. Hello, whatever the platform name. There are only this amount of days which will be calculated on this new year function that we have, and it will show around in our application. So let's give it a try. See how it looks like. And first I ran the iOS application. Let's see whether it is running, because whatever we did not even touched yet the iOS code, anything related to Swift. We are solely basing on iOS stuff, so Kotlin stuff. Hello, this remember there are only 4 days left until the new year. So you guys can see the calculation that we need has been done in our application, but we did not run anything on Kotlin level. It was only only done with smaller Kotlin changes. So we have done some Kotlin changes, and iOS application got updated. And the logic that we had is updated from a shared library, so we don't have to worry about that as well. But of course, it is not gonna be like, okay, everything that we do in there is gonna affect on here. Right now, we are only focusing on one greeting message. We are just manipulating that string and we are showing there. Other than that, we haven't done anything like significant there. Okay, if you are doing something significant, like say for example, we're gonna be developing a new feature where we get more data uh, from a different stream, then that's gonna be a total different case. Okay, we have to work with that. Right now, we are good with this implementation, and it is giving us uh, uh, some idea on how we gonna make the sharing experience bit sharing experience in here works, and we also gonna do platform specific things. If we really need to do platform specific things, how we gonna access those kind of things, and if we have a library kind of thing, how we gonna do like that. Okay, so any questions up until this, guys, especially with the code sharing, how we have done it? That is most important thing that you need to understand. Okay, this is really important. Any questions up until this? Okay, all right. So the comment section, remember how we can do a platform specific thing or a platform independent thing like this date until now, and make sure if you are doing platform independent, that library or the function that you're going to be using is not specific, or it is working without an error with the KMM ecosystem. Okay, let's go a little bit further, and we will see how easy it's gonna uh, get get our application up and running with multiple things. Okay, all right. So we'll be working with a REST API at this point, and we will utilize the KMM modules to do so. And you guys can remember, we developed an MVVM application in Android using a lot of tools like Hilt and MVVM pattern and all those things. Okay, so we'll be offshoring, like mean we um, will be not having all those things in one singular project for Android and iOS. Okay, so if you are developing an application for both iOS and Android, probably the module section, it's going to be same for both iOS and Android. So what we will do is we will take that logic, the logic behind the module section, and we will put into under two different platforms, and each of these platform we'll see how these things can be implemented. Okay, so couple of things that we need to do, like we did earlier on. We have the serialization. That is obvious. We need to serialize the JSON payload, and we need a communicator. That is the like how we're gonna communicate with the server, like doing the REST client sort of things. So for Android, we use retrofit. Sorry. But the thing is, retrofit is not KMM compatible. So we will be using something KMM compatible, like Kata. So Kata is something that is fully um, fully an KMM compatible library. So we will use Kata, and we'll use coroutine. Of course, coroutine is something that we can use for the thread and of uh, thread management or smaller background task kind of things. We will use coroutine on that. Okay. So first of all, we will add those dependencies. Okay. So now make sure when we are using these things, common section dependencies, make sure those things are in common. Okay. Otherwise, it will not work. So I will use Kotlin coroutine. Okay. So I will be implementing that in here. And um, so the coroutine is also something supported in iOS and Android implementation. Uh, there are like bugs with related to the memory management. Currently, I think if we are using Kotlin version 7.0, 7.0 or 7.020, we have to have the Kotlin memory manager enabled by default. But if you're having something old, we have to work with much older version. So we will see what is the version that we are using. If we are getting that error, where is the not can see, shall we see Kotlin version datetime JUnit. Think we are good with the version we are having. I think we are in 1.8. The issue was it was on 1.7 series. Right now, I think we are good. But if we come across any issues, we will just add missing native memory manager in our application. And the next thing that we need to do, as you guys can remember, so we add was the command section. Yeah. Okay, so we add the coroutine support. Then we will add serialization. Okay, Kotlin serialization, and this serialization plugin helps us to convert from JSON to Kotlin related serialization. So plugin blocks, it's going to be a plugin that we will be using. So we will add that plugin section as here. By the way, these are all like very standard ones that I'm copying from the official documentation. Then let's see whether we get any errors on that right now. I think it should be okay. And the next thing is something important and something something a little bit different. So we will introduce Kata for our application. So introducing Kata is a little bit different than the other libraries that we have done so far. So other libraries, we just have to add it in the main section or the command section, and it works. Okay, and But when it is coming to Cater is having two different client implementation. So the client implementation that the most of the logic that is behind Cater is going to have more common things, and there will be specific things when it is coming to iOS and Android. Okay, so how we gonna do that? How we gonna manage that kind of thing? It's fairly simple, like we did. So first thing we need to do is that we need to mention the Cater version. Cater version we'll be using 2.3.2 in this scenario. So no matter where you are, Android or iOS, you need you will need to provide the Cater version. Okay, so we'll just put it in a global scope so where others can also access, no matter whether it is Android or iOS. Okay, so I will add the Cater dependencies in here. So Cater client core, content negotiation, Cater and JSONX. So all of these are implementation dependencies, and all those things will have the exact version that we are using in here. Okay, so this is for common section, right? This is the magic behind iOS and Android, both gonna be having the common implementation. But the problem arises when we are using um, the client. The client is not shareable within iOS and Android. The client, the way REST client is designed, it's not gonna work with iOS and Android as it is. So the implementation will be breakdown into two different parts or two different implementation. It's going to be the same interface that we will be using, but the client that we're going to be using is going to be different for iOS and for Android. So we can define the iOS and Android uh, dependencies like this. Okay, so do not get uh, confused at this point. Okay, so this is the common implementation which will work with any case. Like if we look at the date time, it did not had to have a specific implementation for iOS or specific client or something like that for Android. Okay, but in the uh, in the instance of when we talk about Cater is not going to be that easy. So iOS have its own client, iOS have its own client, Android have its own clients. So the dependencies will change. So you guys can see there are Cater core, that means both libraries that going to be using core components. But when it is coming to Android, we will have Android client, and for iOS, we will have the Darwin client. Okay, Darwin is the code name for iOS. So we will have these two in place. So I'll sync now to check whether there are any errors popping up with my dependencies or plugin that I have put in it. Hopefully not. Okay. So this is how if the implementation of the client, implementation for each has a different mechanism. This is the dependency management. Dependency management wise, how we can differentiate these things. Okay, so this is the common Android, iOS. If there is no issues having the library for the both one, you just have it common, have it within common, it works. The date time and coroutines are such a cases. Okay, especially date time, it is you don't have to worry about specific implementation for iOS and Android. But for Cater, you need to have two different implementation or two clients actually for iOS and Android. Okay. All right. So we'll be following the exact implementation of the demo application that we that we gonna be built in the in the tutorial, official documentation at least. It's gonna be using the API such as the um, SpaceX API. So let me show the SpaceX API at this point. Copy link address. So this is the SpaceX API documentation. You can see how what are the things SpaceX is providing for us. SpaceX is we do not need to be like worry about what this data is all about. Right now, we will be interested in launches. Okay, so it's gonna give us the version 5 and 4, whatever the version you like. You can um, have a look at that. So these are like the documentation that you need to do, how to get layers in upcoming schema and everything, coding and everything. All right. So we can access the API directly, I think. So, yeah, this one. I think yeah, it's one in the class query schema. So if you look at the schema, how data will look like yeah, under the um, SpaceX launches. Okay, so if you look at the launch, so you will have something like this: a flight number, you will get a name, you will get date UTC in UTC format. What is the date in Unix, local data, precision. A lot of things will be exposed to us as data. So whether the rocket launch was success, rocket detail, what is the rocket ID, and there are a lot of information uh, with the launch. Okay, you guys can see um, what sort of information is there and what is the data type and whether it is required or not. So this is the API schema. That means how our data will be modeled. This is how we're gonna see our data. So we will take few of these data and try to show these things in our application. That is the target. Okay. And by the way, you don't need to use this one if you are not familiar with one. You can use the JSON placeholder or something similar. So um, you guys are familiar with. Right now, this uh, SpaceX launch version 4 API gives us a lot of details, and we have different data types. This might be one of the cases we are using in here. So we will model this rocket launch in our code. Okay. So it's gonna be basically simple thing. So and remember this code section, it is also gonna be shared. Okay, it is gonna be used in a model as in iOS as well as in Android. Okay, so it's going to be shared. Okay, and since we put everything in share in common, we will put a new, let's say, a directory. We call it models. Okay, and since it is rocket launch, we will create a new Kotlin class. Um, Kotlin and get mm, new kt. It's not lk. Delete. Let me delete this one as well. I think I created the right click new modules. Okay. New file directory Kotlin. Do we have Kotlin stuff in here? Mm-hmm. In here. Rocket launch.kt Kotlin to indicate a Kotlin file. So I will be using Kotlin data class. So the Kotlin data class is like a really simple way of modeling the things. Okay, so we have the serial name, flight number, and you guys can see that the flight number right around here, flight underscore number, and it is a type of number. That means a non-numeric number, a non-alphabetic number like 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, and whether it is required or not. So we have modeled that the serial name represents what it is showing in our API. So the API is having the name for like underscore number, but when we are using in Kotlin, we do not need that number to be represented with underscore. So we use this serial names annotation, and we change that to flight number right here. So same goes here. So the serial name, it's gonna be name. So you will find a variable called name in here. But when we are referring in our rocket launch class, we will call it mission name. Likewise, we can change even the name that we use within our serialization binding. So my recommendation would be to keep it same as what you see in the API. Otherwise, it's gonna get confused later on. So you have to have the mental map. Okay, the name is mission name. Date UTC means launch date UTC. Likewise, you have to have a mind map. Yeah. To reduce that, we will say name to name, date UTC, date date UTC to date UTC, and success to be simply success. Okay, so date types, and make sure you are following that types as well. So success is a boolean, date type UTC, date type UTC, it is also string, and you guys can see whether it is required or not. So for example, the success is a boolean and it is not required, and there is no default value. That means it is not required. That's why the indication of this um, uh, optional mark. Okay, but other things are required, so we are keeping this as these things as required. Okay, so we have modeled out the rocket launch. Okay, so this is how our data gonna look like. The model is gonna be looking like something this, right? And we need to have the HTTP client. Okay, so HTTP client, as I mentioned earlier, the client is going to be different from iOS to Android. That's why even we have two different implementation for the client. So we need to have the HTTP client for both applications. So if you're having Android, like we did in the platform section, what is the error here? Okay, not the implementation. Override the platform. Okay, let's see whether we get this invite while we are compiling. I think this one for Android. Okay, so I think there is a dependency issue in here. You guys can see when we are trying to build it. Let's build the Android one first. And I think we should get an error. Probably the serializer did not cut as we expected. Yeah, required by project share. We could not find the shared Kotlin compiler class path Android debug, could not find Kotlin serialization compiler embedded. Well, this one, the following location required by project shared, possible solution, declare repository artifact. Okay. We'll see what's wrong here. The shared library is not initialized. So we get the shared module. Yes. Create a plugin, serialization. Let me sync once again. All right. Platform. Okay, the platform class is not implemented. We'll see what's the issue right now. Or maybe that is the if you are using that, now you have already new Kotlin manager. I think the memory manager issue is affecting us. Let's see whether it will fix that. We'll scaffold these things as much as possible. Sync now. Okay, let's play it again. Okay, could not resolve Kotlin serialization. Okay, let's search on the issue, what we get. Could not find what's the issue. Mm, we might need to add the dependency Maven URL. Let's see whether that fix or change. Login. Sync now. No. Right. One. And I have changed the version for the serialization plugin. Not the latest one, but a little bit old one, 1.8.2.1. Let's see whether that's fixed the issue. These things can happen. Documentation states something, but when we are applying it in actually, it's not gonna work. So that is way new normal. But we'll see whether we will get a fix on this. Building Gradle is doing its job. Okay, let's see whether that fixed our issue. It seems to be. It seems to be an issue with the plugin version. So if you guys got into any troubles, just downgrade the version from 9 to 2.9 1.9.0 to 1.8.21. Okay, that seems to fix the issue. And let's see, let's move on. And yeah, we created the what do you call the rocket launcher model. This is how it's gonna look like. And platform issues goes as well. That means we are almost good. Now the next thing is we need platform specific clients. Okay, the client library, if you guys can remember, we had two different implementation. So we have to have the same for iOS and Android. Okay, so we need to make sure to have that in our application as well. So we will have the shared one first. So it's in common main. Under greetings, we will have the HTTP client defined in here. It's not like super good place to put put your HTTP client, but since we are using the greeting class, we will have the greeting class hold uh, one more variable, which is the HTTP client. Okay, we have to import the HTTP client. Make sure you are getting it from Kata as well, because Kata is the HTTP client that we're going to be using. And install content negotiation, and when how we're gonna we're gonna do with JSON that is coming from serialization. And let me import the other one things as well. So where we have two different JSON implementation. We will be using the Kotlin X serialization JSON, and whether it is pretty printing, linted, and ignore unknown keys is in place. So these things are like a little bit of configuration that we are trying to get. Okay, so um, so this is like content negotiation is like a plugin that used for uh, serialization this stuff. If you guys can remember, in retrofit we have something like JSON or something similar. It's the equivalent here, content negotiation, and we will do some JSON manipulation to make things easy. So this is like a one-time thing that we need to do. So we don't have to like have it memorized everywhere we go. Okay. All right. So we will get the information like list of rocket launch using HTTP GET, and we will do just one small change in our greeting message that we have in here. So we will just we'll just try to take the value first, and next time we will make it more pretty. Okay, so we have the HTTP client get, and we will be using version 4 launchers, and we will be importing the body in the in the request, and we will have the imports in place, so that makes things easy. HTTP client .get. Okay, so this is going to be a suspended function because we will be calling this in coroutine scope. Unresolved branch launch, the IT launch success. Okay, we just comment this. So we will be calling the Rocket API. Okay, and this is not in the perfect MVVM manner. We are just making the call within the HTTP client, and we took it. We will call it from within this line. So we call the HTTP client. We call the get method, and we will have all the space data, and we will get the body. And so we will get a list of rocket launchers. If you go to this URL, you'll find all the information that we are talking about. Okay, so this is the raw version of the things that we are talking about. Okay, there are like few items in here. I think almost 10 items or something like that. So it has all the information about the rocket launches. Okay, so we can take the first one out of it, and we will say um, we can do manipulation on that based on that. Okay, so we'll just first sorry, we'll take the exception throwing class as well. So this might throw an exception. So we annotate that as one as well. So next thing that we can do is rockets, and we can say get last first. I mean, first means it will take the list first item and return to us. And we can do whatever we like in here. It dot launch success equals true. So we will get the we will take the rockets, okay, all the rockets that we have got from the API. Take the first one where the success is true. So there can be multiple. The first items can be success or not, but in here we will be considering the first success rocket launch. Okay, so rather than saying rockets, we have to say launch, but for now we will say where first success launch. So rather than getting all those values, what we will do is we will take all the rockets, the value that we have got from here, and take the first one, but under a condition where the success is true. So it will go through these rockets, each and every one, the rocket list, and it will take the first element where success is true. Okay, if it is fail, it's not going to take. If it is success true, then we take that one into our list. That means we are considering that. And now we will add a new line in here. Okay, so we can have something like this. First successful launch, and you can say date UTC. So we will take, we will do the call, and we will take the value, and we will show it in here. Okay, so we are making the function call in one single code base. Okay, we are doing the REST call and everything in Kotlin only. We haven't touched a single code yet in our Swift UI language or Swift based things. We haven't touched it. We haven't touched anything in Android even as of now. But remember, this is like a one text field that we are keep manipulating. That is not going to be the case. But for simplicity, we will see how easy it's to do such manipulations. See the logs. There seems to be an error. Suspend function gate should be called only from a coroutine or any other suspend function. Okay, so now this our application is giving us some errors because now we have made the greeting function suspend in the sense like it's gonna run it's gonna not give us back results immediately. It will block this method execution for IO stuff because as you can see the calling the HTTP client get, this will block our main thread. Okay, so in order to unblock it, I mean not unblock it, in order to say okay, this is gonna be suspending our execution, we have introduced the suspend function, suspend keyword here. Now in our Android application, normal call is not what we are getting, this greet function. Now it is not basic um, basic kind of call. It's now a suspended call. So we have to make sure that this one till the values are getting or till the values are populating, we need to show something, or we need to find a way while it was suspended, what should the UI should look like. Okay, it's kind of like a waiting state till the data is ready, till everything is done with the greetings. So we have to wait until that happens, and once it is happened, we can show it. So until that is happening, that means the data is loading, what would we show? Okay, so we will do something like a small state management in here. So we will have a variable called text. Okay, something like this, a text which is in type remember. Okay, we will look into these things in a little bit later. Right now we will be using a mutable remember in here. Okay, and what we'll do is this is going to be the loading state of our application, and we will have this text showing our greeting, and we have this launch effect in our disposer. That means it is something like we are executing this code section in a suspended manner. Okay, that means we are running it in a coroutine scope. Okay, so launch effect will take we'll execute this in a coroutine scope. You can even see this is representing the coroutine scope, and it works in a different in a different coroutine. That means a small thread, and greetings.greet will be called, and whatever the value it is going to return us will be uh, assigned to value text. Okay, so if something goes wrong, if there is an error coming on, the error, either it's going to say error, or if there is an error with local message, it will come and show as text. So successful, whatever the value it returns, it will be set to this text. If there is an error, the error will be set into this text. Okay, and type variant is get value from it will be saved as delegate. In the calculation will only be recompression will always value reduced by compression. Okay, is this error? Did I import it correctly? Compose. Okay, I think runtime related. Okay, the import was wrong for some reason, so I have to import everything from Jetpack Compose runtime. So now you guys get the picture. So we have a text. So its initial state will be loading. Okay, so we will launch a coroutine at this point and execute the greeting.greet message. If everything went successful, it will be assigned to text. For some reason, there was an error, the network was not there, the URL is not responding, server had some issues. It will return error, and we will get the localized message and put it into error. If the localized message is not there, we will just simply say error. At the end of this coroutine launch, that means at the end of this execution of this coroutine, we will get the text and we will update that in here. Okay, so while this was happening, it's going to show loading. Once it is done, we will see the whatever the value is from the greeting or the exception message that we have put in here. So we run it again. At this point, now you get a permission denied missing internet permission. That means the localized message, it is happening right now. So that means we have forgot to put the internet permission. This is not executing because of the permission issues, and it is giving the error that we get. Okay, the localized message. So this is the error situation. So that is because the internet permission was not given. So those kind of thing actually are gonna be something in users permission, internet. Okay, even though you are building a KMM application, these kind of things are universal. Okay, this is Android thing, so we have to make sure the internet permission is given. So let it run it once more time. And you can see the loading is happening, and hello, and the last successful launch was on 2008, and this number 2008, 9, and what is it, whatever the time is. Okay, so you guys can see that if I run this once again, the loading will show up. There you go, the loading, and once the data is loaded, once the API call is successful, you will get the value from there. Okay, so whatever the values that we have gotten, we have written in this greet message, but this is not like 100% MVVM at this moment. Okay, but we will get there. Right now we know, okay, we have created HTTP client, we have done call there, and we took a value and we manipulated the text that we're going to be showing, and we show it in here. Okay, so we will do the same iOS application and run it again. It will take a little bit time to do the building because we haven't built it for iOS. We have added few dependencies and everything. So the build for iOS will take a little bit more compared to Android because we have built the Android several times. So anything up until this? Any questions, everyone? You have, okay, I have error on there. Android conceived content view in target iOS. Okay, the iOS build fail. Let's see whether we can get error. Debugging this in here is like little bit hard, but let's see whether we can build successful. So when we are compiling the code, the following build command fail. That is iOS app from iOS app system content view system. Let's give it another try. Sometimes build no. Okay, you guys can see that it is giving a little bit of detail. I think we need to do some changes in there as well. Because if you guys can remember, we did the change in the main activity for running inside the affected launch. Okay, so we have to do the same thing in our iOS application. So I will go to the content view. Yes, content view, shift. Okay. Right now, we have the content view in here. Window group as window group as where is that? Okay, so right now we will, its Xcode is not working, so we'll have to adapt for now. So we'll be looking at the MVVM pattern related stuff for iOS. It's is basically what we have learned from um, um, the learned concept that we learned the concept from Android. We will incorporate those things in iOS for this section, because things in things in iOS, it's easy if we implement these things in MVVM pattern, so we don't get that much of um, issues like we did in Android. Okay, so we will apply this main KTDs, launch everything in MVVM pattern. Right now, we will make sure the iOS application is MVVM ready. Okay. To do that, let's create the first we create the view model. Okay. So we will create the view model for the application, SwiftUI application. Then we will move around how we can get the other parts in here. Okay, first thing that we need to do is we need to define a view model. So defining a view model is somewhat similar. So pay a good attention in here. The concept will be the same, but implementation is going to be a little bit different. Okay. So who here have worked with object Swift UI applications? Did we talk about Swift UI applications before, or you guys are fairly new to Swift UI applications? Please raise your hand if you are new. I mean, we do not have much idea on Swift UI. Probably you guys haven't like worked with the application itself unless you own a Mac. This one is keep loading. I'm not sure if it's gonna load or not. So I do not have any exposure for SwiftUI. I might need a little bit introduction to that. Raise your hand, please. I'm not getting any response, guys. So do you need or not? I need introduction. Vatsala, you need an introduction on that? Areen, sorry, Eleni, you guys need an introduction for SwiftUI. I think we have done a little. Okay. All right. So I think you guys, we did a small section on SwiftUI last year. So we will have a little bit of refresher here. So um, SwiftUI application normally start with like a Flutter application or a Jetpack Compose application. So all those things are like reactive programming mechanisms comes into play. Okay, so so the starting point for in this SwiftUI application, it is called this iOS app.swift. So how do you know this is the starting point? This declaration on top at main. So this at main will gives you saying okay, this is the starting point of our application, and it is a structure called iOS app, and it's gonna have a body, okay, and the body will have some sort of scene, and we have a window group, and within the window group we have the content view. So this is where the magic begins. So the content view Swift is another struct. Okay, this is going to be a view, and within this view, we will call the we will have something called a body. Okay, this is if you are um, if you are having a struct with a, some sort of view, and we have to return a body. In this section, we are simply showing a text view. Okay, this text view have something called greet, and the greet is coming from the greeting.greets. Okay, if you guys can remember, this is the same class greeting.greet that we have used um, in our Android application. So content view, we have this greeting.greet, where we call the greet and we show it in the text. So that's what currently showing on. Okay, but now it is broken because we have changed the greeting method into suspend method, and we need to make sure that it's follow the same exact thing. Okay. All right. So if you guys can remember, we have implement it in the command main, the greeting. We have implement the HTTP client, and the greeting function we have changed a little bit to match a suspend function. Okay. All right. So next thing that we need to do is get this content view. This is the content view that we are supposed to work with. And now we will need to create a view model. Okay, this is going to be something very similar to what we have in Android. Okay, so this preview, this is the preview of the view. Okay, right now the Xcode is not helping to us at all, but sooner or later it will come back once it is live. So if we lucky enough, we'll see that. If not, for now, we will just do what is not recommended. We can't like do Swift coding in Android Studio. It's best to have it in Xcode. So we will look into the view model implementation. Okay, we will go with the iOS app. First, we will create a view model. And by the way, this is since this is the demonstration, um, we will have the view models and everything in one single location. But if this actually a production grade one. What we'll do is we will have the view models views in a separate directory. If you guys can remember, we focus by the module. We can have the modules in uh, different places, and the dependencies view models are in one single group or one single directory. Right now, we will have the view model in here. We call this as view model dot shift. Okay. Um, so will be having the view models content in here. Um, I'll just have the class implemented in here. Okay. So one thing that we need to import for sure is we need to import Swift UI. Okay, Swift UI related stuff. And now let me explain what's going on in here. It's pretty much, if you look at the code initialization that we have done in Android, it's gonna be the same, but in here it's gonna be a little bit uh, in a MVVM pattern. So view model, as you guys can remember, all the logics behind what we are doing in the UI is going to be in the view model. So in Swift UI, we can call this view model whatever we like. Right now, I'm going to just call it view model. But sorry. But in real life, if this is greeting view model, we will say greeting view model or greeting VM. This kind of naming conversation should follow. Right now, this is simply VM. I'll just call it VM, and probably this code will not work unless we do it in Xcode, because of we will show why it won't work. Sometimes it might. Uh, But creating these classes, Xcode should know about these things, and when it is compiling, so that's give an error. Okay, if you guys can remember, in Android, we also had lifecycle X view models to be inherited. Same goes in here. We have observable object. Okay, so observable object is something we can say whatever the values in here defined in this class might change. It will change over time. So it's gonna be uh, changing, and if anyone is interested in, you can observe for those changes. And not all the values that's gonna be in this class in the view model can be changed. Everything annotated with at publish will change over time, and you can listen. Okay, so we have a variable called text. This is something like mutable live data. Okay, this is not the exact thing, but something like mutable live data. Mutable live data, if you guys can remember, we had the same thing. So rather than calling like mutable live data, we have something called published, variable called text, and by initial value, it's gonna say loading. Okay, and uh, then this class is the view model class is initialized. It is like the constructor of of this class. What we'll do is we will call the greeting class and the greet method. Okay, so this greeting class is coming from the shared module. If you guys can remember, content, yes, it is importing from shared. So now we are sharing that uh, code. Okay, this shared is representation of this shared library that we have. Okay, so in greeting we have a greet method. Now it is not like a simple call method, it is a callback method. So if it is success, we will get a greeting. If it is an error, we will get an error message. Okay, So like what we did in coroutine, we need to dispatch these things in a main queue. Okay, as in, because the whatever happening, this is happening on the background, and once it is done, we need to update the main queue. Okay, so this will happen in background, but when we are setting up the values that we got, we have to do it in the dispatch queue. Okay, and dispatch queue, especially in the main, and asynchronously, what should happen is we should get we should get something called greeting, which is this one. And if let, in the sense, we are making sure that it is null. Okay, greetings can be null. That means the value is sometimes it might not come. So what we have to do is we have to extract it to something called greeting. Okay, that's this section is what we call optional unwrapping. Okay, we will unwrap the greeting, and uh, if it is not undefined or null, uh, not null, we will get the greetings, and we have the self.text, which is this publish one, and assign it to that. Okay, if for some cases, if this is null or not working, we will have the self text, which is this publisher, and the localized error description or the error. That means if something goes wrong, we will have the error, put it in this published variable. Okay, so this is a simple VM view model, pretty much similar to what we have seen in Android. So we have a simple view model in place. Okay. Now what we have to do is uh, we have to create this view model. We have to create this view model in our content view. This is our content view. Rather than getting the greeting directly, now we will be getting that view model with the newly created view model. Okay, so you guys can see it's gonna be observable object. Now you guys can see that observable object, and we have in here observed object. Okay, mind the difference. This is observed object, and this is observable object. That means this is the provider and this is the consumer. Observed object, and we are going to create a view model, but you guys can see that this one is not initiating it itself. So we can just but as for now we can get the text, and you guys can remember that view model has a published variable called text. We can show that in here view model. This is the view model and the text that we are interested in showing. Okay, and uh, okay, so um, in here what we can do is when we are creating a content view, now we have to provide the view model. So if you guys can remember in Swift UI, in here we are creating a content view and we need to provide the view model in this scenario. So we will provide the view model, and we need to create a new view model. We can just call the view model in installation. So we have the class in here. Now we just need to create a view model out of that, and we provide it to the content view. If you go to the content view, now we have a view model instantiation because we have passed one, and from there the text view will be taken out and it will show the values. Okay, still this thing is not working. I'm not expecting to this to run. Yeah. Swift compiler is probably, yeah, find view model in scope. The view model initiation is uh, not as expected. Uh, let's see. There is a different implementation with the extent. Let me get that. It's under content view. This will not work if I understand correctly. Yeah, so basically, it's hard to me to get the source code running in iOS without export. Export is not helping me today. Not sure why. Keeps saying app is loading, probably downloading something. But uh, I will, I will keep this app working when we come back next time. Just for now, take a mental note on this. How we have done it so far within observable object and the view model for iOS. Okay. All right. We will explore more on this iOS application on upcoming lectures. But let's keep our focus on the Android application for now. And if you hit the play button, and now you get the loading, and mine that is pretty much slow today. That might be the case in here as well. So you guys can see the data that we have gotten from the shared component. And if I go back to my shared component greeting section, now you guys will see the implementation that we have done is working as expected. So yeah, the main advantages that we see in here, um, uh, the main advantages that we see in here, the application is creating application that we need to create will do a lot of MVVM stuff out of the box. Okay, the view model uh, and the model is completely differentiated from the class itself. So you guys can see the model fetching and everything is done in a way where you this is not fully MVVM because we are actually executing the values in here and we are returning it sorry in a non-observable way. We will take a closer look how we can actually implement this kind of code in Android where it's truly 100% MVVM pattern. Okay, right now what we have done is we have separated our logic for sure. The view is in a different place. Logic is model is in a different place. But for Android, we haven't have the VM section, view model. We do not have. We just simply called it from here for demonstration purposes. Now taking up to next level, we will make this section to view model. Okay. For demonstration, we have just put it in here and see it still works. Okay. All right. Any questions up until this guys? Any questions how this works? Anything that you guys need any clarifications on? I think I have given assignment on coroutine as well, right? So anyone have completed the coroutine one as well? I have looked into coroutines. Okay. Please have a look around that one as well. I mean, if you miss these things, you guys lose a lot of knowledge. And probably, if I ask you to do something, those things will probably come up in your paper. So if I give you an assignment, think that is in your final paper as well. Okay. Any questions up until this? No? Okay. Let's take a 5 minutes water break. I'm having very little interest. Okay, let's come back in 5 minutes and start. Um, so yeah, so when we work with this application structure, so I think we talked about few things in terms of managing the code and testing the code. So we will look into few few ways that we can utilize the application in terms of testing. Okay, how KMM will help us in terms of testing, and what sort of things that you can expect in KMM based applications. Okay, so if you guys can see in here that the code that we are running in here is sorry um, is not um, is not basically having anything to do with the native implementations of the underlying platforms. For example, we do not depend on Android stuff. We do not have Android activities, fragments, those kind of things. We normally do not take that in here. Okay, and when we are testing the logics that we have written in here, for example, if we take this days until new year function that we have created, so this function is totally not depending on any other third-party library other than the Kotlin X datetime. So we have a limited set of dependencies in here as well. So we have written our codes where it is testable, more testable, and now we will utilize or we will see how we can test these applications using Kotlin X test. Okay, so you guys can see that we have already something called this command test. Okay, so whatever we write in command main, we can have a test case that is running for command test in here. Okay, so uh, what we can do is, now you guys can see that now you can see that the greet is should is not the one that we have written, because earlier the greet was something different. Now the greet has changed a lot. So what we have put it in here is not the same thing that we have put it in our application. So what I will do is I will create a different function that we can test. Okay, something similar to what we had earlier on. So I will create a hello function, and I will try to create a test case around it. So I create a function, say hello, and under this hello function, what I'll do is I'll be returning a string. Okay, I'll be returning a string, and the string will be hello, hello from, and we can utilize the platform things in here. So you can see platform, and we have the platform name. Okay, so now we will be utilizing this hello function to test it out and check whether it is working. Okay, under common test, we will have these test methods. Okay, and make sure these are coming from Kotlin test sections. By default, if you are using this, it will be the same as that. So when we want to test a function, test of test something that we have written, make sure you annotate it with test and write a function on top of it. So I will say not rather than text example, I would say test hello. So test my intention in here is to test the hello function. So I will say assert true. It means it is if you guys know assertions. So we will be checking the left side and the right side, or yeah, um, um, uh, or some given value is represented there. Okay, so I'm gonna check greeting dot hello, and it should contain hello. Okay, and this hello function, we are saying that greeting dot hello, whatever we are returning should contain hello. Okay, do we have that? Think yes, hello is there, so uh, it should be assertion true. Okay, that is true because it is containing value hello when we call this. Okay, and I can give the optional message check hello is mentioned. That means when we are executing that, what should happen? So now the problem is, if you look at the greeting, and you can see that platform name is something that we have considered in our implementation, platform name. So when we are running the test, what should happen? What is the platform name in this scenario? Okay, we will see. We will try to see to run it um, and see what's going on. Let's run. You guys can see there is a play button over here with the text executions. Run this command, and you guys can see what is the platform that we need to execute this on. So is gonna be Android or is gonna be iOS. So let's say I want to run it in Android now. Uh, yes. So this is Android testing. So sorry, this is the uh, common test in here. Okay. Uh, comment this out. Is running the wrong test. Testing the sharing code, use action. Oh wait. For the Android. Right. Command main. So, give me a second. I think I need to create a proxy in here. Not in greetings, but about. It's an object that we are testing. Give me a minute, guys. I need to select. No, there seems to be some changes in here. Okay, I think I have got a wrong implementation of this. Yeah, so I'll double check on that one, guys, because this has changed from the last time that I have seen. So yeah, I might need a little bit time on that. I will correct back this ones for the next lectures. But the idea behind is basically when we have a common test going on, we will execute the common test in this section where we can check the values for the common logics that we are having right now. And if we have platform specific ones like Android one that we have mentioned in here, we should have the Android ones working in here. If I say hello in here and try to execute, it is like a platform specific thing. Let me check whether that one works. And for Android, this one tests hellos. Let's say and Androids and check run. Yeah, this one is not passing. That's because I have asserted a wrong value in here. Yeah. So basically, I will explain the current test function that we are running on Android in here. So we have the Android test, which is checking Android is mentioned. The other way around, that means we have set the message and greeting hello. Sorry, greeting hello. It should contain Android. Okay. So if I go to hello from, and you know the platform that we are running on currently, I ran the application on Android. If you guys can see the platform implementation for the main platform Android, it's containing Android. So it is containing Android, and we can say, okay, the test for this Android is passing. Okay. And same goes for iOS, but I don't think iOS it's gonna work. Right now it is building so far for no reason. And uh, what we have in the test hello in this section. So we have this greeting hello function. So we have the hello section over here. And once we write the common implementation for this, it should write the execute the common ones, but I'm not sure why it is not executing this one. Instead, it's try to execute the platform specific one on Android. Let me get back to you on that. Right now, you guys see the uh, uh, easiness of writing test cases in here, because we are not writing that much UI dependent stuff in here, so it's easy to write only the things that we are focusing on. The data layer. The data layer can be easily test without depending on the view or the view model layers. So that gives us a huge advantage over MVVM pattern and KMM. That's, I mean, even if you write a good MVVM application, it should not depend on the model or the view for testing purposes, because when we want to get some data from the API, and when we do some manipulations over there, it should not depend on the application that underlying that we are working with. So it's uh, easy to test different component at different stage. So if something fails, we can debug very easily. Okay, the application is failing on the model. Okay, okay, model has changed. Model has some sort of API changes happened, or some key is missing, some logic is no longer working. that kind of things we can easily detect on the model layer. Otherwise, if we have everything in together like a spaghetti code, we can't directly decide where the issue is rising or what's the component that we should fix. In this scenario, we don't have to worry about it that much. We can easily see, okay, this layer is where it is failing, and this place is where we should fix that. So that's kind of easiness is there. I'll definitely get back to you on this, why this is failing, and probably once the iOS is done, we can get that one in place as well. Okay, and uh, yeah, so all these things can be found on the getting started section of the Kotlin KMM multimodule. Okay, so you guys can easily uh, um, check these things whether it is working within your machine. If you have something that is stuck or somewhere, easily can check on this. And think probably we next week or next time we will get into MVVM style for KMM, and we will look into um, doing more uh, direct, direct approach rather than this kind of having everything in the uh, greeting message. Perhaps we have a proper way of going with the MVVM pattern. All right. Think any questions up until this, guys, with the testing, KMM, and everything that we have gone went so far? Okay, okay. So probably we'll take the next lecture. Not feeling that good even today. So we'll wind up for today. And please practice the KMM stuff that we have done so far. Otherwise, what will happen is you will lose these things for sure. And if you lose this touch, it is hard to catch back. Okay, I know you guys have other course content as well, but it's better to do these things as soon as by today or tomorrow. Okay. All right. Let me